Picture this. The people meant to keep power in check, the media, the so-called watchdogs of democracy, they're no longer sounding alarms. They're performing for the camera, playing in our faces and telling us everything is fine. Fox News host Megyn Kelly openly floated accusations of Trump Border Czar Tom Holman accepting bribes. But instead of treating it as the earth-shattering scandal it should be, she delivered it casually, like gossip, like corruption at the highest levels of government is nothing more than an amusing rumor. That, my friends, is dystopia, when bribery isn't shocking anymore. It's just Tuesday. But it's not just what she said, it's who said it. See, Kelly is not a politician. She is not some rogue blogger or some random person on Charlie Kirk's internet talking into the void. She is media, one of the supposed gatekeepers of truth. When the press treats corruption as banter, it is a signal. Accountability is dead. We're left in the ruins of spectacle where the fourth estate no longer protects us, it entertains us. And she's in the same media ecosystem as Brian Kilmeade, who has gone on record calling for the extermination of homeless people. Let that sink in. One host laughs about bribes, another fantasizes about mass killings of the vulnerable, and both still occupy prime airtime. This isn't fringe rhetoric anymore. This is mainstream. And by reducing bribery to a casual aside, Kelly essentially gives government corruption a pass. She reframes it from crime into quirk. And that is how authoritarian rot spreads. First we're shocked, then we laugh, then we forget, and then finally we accept it. This is the real insidious danger. Not just that officials might be taking bribes, not just that hosts call for the killing of the poor, but that the people meant to call it out, the people on the mic, are normalizing it. The watchdogs have been bought, and all that's left is the hollow sound of their bark echoing into nothing. Now, even at a light level, this is radicalization because it uses emotion and repeated messages to make the audience see the media and government as corrupt. People are trained to interpret every related event through this lens of decay and moral failure. And over time, this changes how they think and how they feel about institutions. And it creates a mindset that is suspicious, outraged, and primed for action. That's the early stages of radicalized thinking. And make no mistake about it, Megyn Kelly's casual pass on bribery and corruption is dangerous because it normalizes behavior that should trigger outrage and accountability. And as a media figure, her words carry authority. And I say this because there's still so many people who believe something just because they saw it on TV to be true. Framing corruption as gossip or speculation signals to the public that abuse of power is tolerable. This erodes trust in institutions. It weakens democratic safeguards, and it conditions the audience to accept systemic wrongdoing as inevitable. So when corruption is treated lightly by those meant to expose it, the boundaries of ethical governance blur, and society becomes complicit in its own moral decay. Now, let me give you the Orwellian parallel. Megyn Kelly's comments, they sound like newspeak from 1984. By framing bribery and corruption as casual speculation rather than a serious breach of trust, the language minimizes the severity of wrongdoing and it reshapes public perception. Just like newspeak narrows thought and limits the capacity for rebellion, Normalizing corruption in media conditions the audience to accept ethical decay without outrage. You're quietly eroding accountability and the very idea of objective truth. So when this is fully realized, guess what? Society enters a state of totalitarianism. Even a light version, a Bud Light version. This is where corruption, moral decay, and institutional failure becomes normal. The public no longer even expects accountability. And citizens, they're desensitized. They're distrustful, but worse, they're disengaged. And when you're disengaged, you leave power unchecked and you leave abuse unchallenged. And just like Orwell's 1984, truth becomes malleable, ethical boundaries dissolve, governance operates with impunity. So what do, random person on the internet? Well, thank you for your question. We fight the normalization of corruption and media complicity through awareness. Awareness, accountability, and action. First of all, you gotta recognize the patterns. You must call out casual framing of bribery and abuse and refuse to accept it as just politics, just politicians being politicians, just government officials being government officials. No, we can't do that. You must demand transparency from public officials and media figures. You gotta practice holding them to rigorous standards, not performative commentary. Strengthen your own information ecosystem. Seek independent reporting, verify, trust but verify, and amplify voices that prioritize truth over spectacle. Act collectively. Engage in civic processes. Support anti-corruption initiatives. Create public pressure so that accountability is not an option. Because dystopia thrives. It thrives in silence and resignation. It's challenged by vigilance, moral clarity, and collective refusal to normalize decay. That's it and that's all.